warm welcome to another episode of the Monday Morning Learning Podcast. Excited to have Deepak Mohan as my guest today. Warm welcome, Deepak.
You.
Right. Any welcome words before we start off with your introduction, Deepak?
Thank you, Ravi, for inviting me. I have heard to many of your earlier podcasts. I have seen some very senior leaders in it. It is a great opportunity for me to add my perspective, which I think will add value for future leaders. So thank you so much for inviting me.
Great. Thank you. Most welcome, Deepak. Thank you. So, Deepak comes with 3 decades of experience in leadership in consumer lending, retail and wholesale operations, treasury servicing, corporate credit administration, financial control, and risk management with global banks. Deepak was associated with Wells Fargo International GIC as head of independent testing and validation function, which is part of the second line of defense. Prior to Wells, he worked at HSBC and Bank of America in various leadership roles. Now, Deepak Mohan is known in the industry to build large organizations with a culture of engagement, delivery, and innovation. So, Deepak, as we discussed, we have 3 themes for this particular Monday morning podcast. The first one, we're looking at character about competence. The second one is on visionary leadership, the need of the hour. And the third one on the crisis of participative leadership. And through this podcast, I think we have one more humanity in accountability as the last one. So the greater theme, overall theme for this podcast is performance without humanity is not leadership. It's tyranny in disguise. So, Deepak, let's move to the first one on the character about competence. The myth of high-performing but toxic leaders must end. Character isn't optional, it's foundational, and true leadership begins with integrity, not just results. So, couple of sub-themes on the silent damage to culture and on abusive performance myth. The first questions for you, Deepak. Why do some organizations still reward toxic leaders despite clear damage to morale and values? And what shifts are needed to prioritize character when evaluating leadership effectiveness, Deepak?
Well, that's a great question, Ravi, and this question is very valid for the time that we are in, and that it is a very difficult question to answer, and I give a straightforward answer, but I'll try my best. See, when you would see a lot of organizations, they have toxic leaders, but they keep on bearing with them. In my view, there are 3 main reasons why they do that. One is that they always think that toxic leaders, 3 or 4 of them in an organization as large as organizations are acceptable. They are the people who will drive things which you can't do with persuasion, but with coercion. The second point is the top man who leads the company, he never wants to dirty his hand. So they keep such type of people through whom they do the direct messaging or the indirect messaging.
Yep.
And the third reason why toxic leaders sometimes get away with many things which we should not do in an organization. And I've seen this happening in an organization because once a leader hires a person, there's a lot of time, money invested in hiring the person.
Yep.
And the person is hired not only taking a concurrence in India, but also through the functional leader, wherever part of the world it is. So you tell me, who wants to end with egg on your face that you hire a person, 3 months you realize it's a bad marriage, but you think, I will give some more time, 6 months, 9 months, 1 year, 2 years, but that's too late. The damage is done. Your reputation is in tatters. But it is like the chicken and the egg, which one you want to do first. But people, by the time they decide, the game is over. The toxic leader has run amok and people are suffering day by day. So these are the things I think are the reasons why toxic leaders are accepted, although shorter, sometimes longer term in an organization. And what was your second question, Ravi?
Yeah, what shifts are needed to prioritize character when evaluating leadership effectiveness?
Yes, Ravi, see, I've always said that character above competence. So you will sometimes feel, you will see a resume which is full of academic brilliance. The guy is one type, such type of a guy. He doesn't have put his hand on the laptop and the AI generates something on the system, right? But you have heard about the person through various company that he lacked the right character. So I always keep on saying to people that character is most important. Character is decided by the age you are 18 or 20. I still remember in my son's college convocation at Manipal, the principal said a very right thing. She said that don't expect us to change your son overnight in 4 years. What you have taught him for 18 years, that will stay with him and us. But yes, we will add wings for him to fly. But we are not here to change the way of behavior. So character more or less gets crystallized by age of 18. But skill, competence, it can be acquired. So I have always seen that in my career, that I have always hired people who are better in character because I know these are the things I can teach them. And I've seen this happening in one of the previous organizations when we were working. I had a peer who, in spite of so many of people disagreeing, my manager went ahead and hired that person. That guy came from one of the topmost engineering colleges of India, one of the topmost MBA colleges in India. But later, I don't want to go into the details because what he did and what he made and upset the whole apple cart, he was fired first, and then my manager lost his job. So, and I used to always keep on telling him that this guy was a wrong hire, but he will not listen. He will always say, no, he's a rock star. But we don't need rock star. We need leaders in flesh and bones, right? Who understand the pains of the people, who understand, who are empathetic to the people. We do not want in the morning to get and meet somebody who doesn't even wish you and reciprocate you when you say good morning, right? He has a swagger, he talks in a very smart, in a glamorous way. And at the end of the day, you know what it is? Nobody likes him except his manager. But the problem is that we do not need individual superstars. We need team players. Otherwise, if that was the case, Portugal would have won World Cup football 404 times, right? The best footballer on this earth, I feel, is Ronaldo. He would have that. But football is a team game, right? And that's the reason it has not happened. So that is it, as simple as that. That character always needs to be above competence when we are hiring a person, when we are having a person in our leadership team, or when we want somebody to deliver on behalf of the organization.
Excellent, Deepak. Thanks so much. I think you're the first leader who's actually talking about character, and I think over 3 decades you have actually observed so many leaders coming into your three different organizations. I'm really grateful that you're actually coming and sharing your distilled insight to the audience, Deepak. So let's move on to the next one, Deepak. Second one is on visionary leadership, the need of the hour. Leadership is no longer about control; it's about courage, empathy, and imagination. And visionary leaders see people, not just outcomes. So sub-themes basically are into visionary vis-a-vis command and control and emotional intelligence in decision making. So two questions again for you, Deepak. In today's fractured world, what defines a true visionary leader? And I think once you answer that, we'll go to the next question.
See, visionary leadership is something which is the need of the hour, not only for the organization, but for various countries as well. I personally feel a leader is a visionary who builds an idea, drives the idea, and ensures through persuasion his idea is accepted by the team. Then only that idea would be successful. See, you can have a vision, Ravi, but if your vision is only for yourself, it makes no sense, right? If you are leading a team of 500 or 5,000 or 50,000, everybody has to talk that one vision. Then only that vision will be successful. Nobody ever thought that we will have a driverless car until and unless Elon Musk thought about it, right? But you have to hear that man to understand how he brought it from an elementary stage to the stage that today it is, right? So that is called visionary leadership. It is extremely important for visionary leaders. And another thing is, vision is not something that you make it on Monday, change it on Tuesday, refine it on Wednesday. On Thursday, you come and say, my leader doesn't agree with my vision. And Friday, you say, I have another vision. That cannot be visionary leadership. Therefore, if you are a visionary leader, first job of yours is go and make your idea acceptable to people who matter at the top. Once they all accept and agree, then take it down to your team. Then your team has to accept that idea, right? Until unless that does not happen, don't move ahead. I have seen people in rush to be called a visionary leader. It's fine. You don't have to be called a visionary leader. If you don't have a vision, don't call yourself a visionary leader. Be a BAU leader. Nothing is wrong in that. You'll get your salary. But we all want to be called a visionary leader without having a vision which is 3 to 5 or 7 years. But once you make it, you cannot keep on changing. If tomorrow Deepak Mohan is not in the seat, somebody has to come and carry the vision of the idea that it was sold at that point of time. That eradicates confusion, that enhances trust, and that builds teamwork. Teams start believing that yes, there is somebody who has a vision, who's ready to drive the vision. And at the end, I will say, visionary leader is a leader who puts his neck on the line. You have to put the neck on the line. Tomorrow, you should not be that when such a thing happens, you put somebody in the front and say, it was his vision which I took and took to you. Yes, it was my vision. I'm not saying that always everybody is successful in his vision, but if you fail, there should be reasons for you to fail, right? And that should be acceptable reasons. So that I think is the main thing of a visionary leader. There are a lot of visionary leaders I respect. One is Elon Musk. I respect Jeff Bezos. I respect Bill Gates. And I also have a lot of respect for a vision of Alex Ferguson, who was a Manchester United coach. See, once he left, Manchester United was never the team again, right? They are now 15th or 16th in the top 20 team in the EPL. They became so bad that I moved my now following them to Liverpool for last 3 years. And I was right. I had some vision. Liverpool won the EPL this year.
Excellent.
You have to be smart enough to understand these things.
Absolutely, Deepak. Thanks so much. Yeah. I think you're giving these practical examples of leagues helps connect to my listeners really well. So the next question basically is on how can leaders inspire without overpowering, especially when under pressure to deliver, Deepak?
See, I will give you a very good example that the problem in today's leadership, which includes people like me, I don't want people to think that I'm not part of that group. So we are trying to tell to the new generation a story which they will not believe you. So this is a different generation, right? This is the generation which is on WhatsApp, which is on Facebook, which is on Instagram. It's like the dopamine, right? So they need always, if I have seen people, they start getting stressful and nervous if they have posted something and they are not getting the likes they want, right?
Yeah.
So, and they get jittery. I've seen this in office also. If they post something on LinkedIn and nobody is liking them, so they start cursing the whole world. They are against it, right?
It's true.
So, so it is very important to get the pulse of this generation. I will give you a small example. So, in one of the organizations, suddenly within a month of 14 years, I was catapulted as the leader of this organization, of a process, of a team, which was doing very, 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 very bad. The last two leaders has left. I was suddenly called into the room by my leaders and asked to take over the team within 14 months of my joining the company. And I was not given a choice. So you know what happens in corporate world. By the time I could react, the announcement had gone out. So I had no other option but to take it up. But yes, I'm very grateful to my both leaders, both my present manager, one of our manager, who told me, anyway, you are going to be this leader of this group. We think that you have the ability to change it with your vision. Ask three things that you want to, which will equip you for success. I thought through the whole of the weekend, and then I went back on Monday and I told them I want three things. One, I want free hand. Because Ravi, you think about it, and the process, the voice of partner was the lowest. The employee engagement survey was at the lowest. Team members attrition was somewhere around 40s. Leadership attrition was somewhere around 30s. Nobody wanted to work in that team. So I told first the free hand. Second is I said that I would work irregular hours. So it was a 24/5 process, US, EMEA, and Asia. They asked me why, because I had a suspicion that there were many people who were not doing the job. So sometime I will log in at 2 a.m. in the morning. When people are expecting that I will not log in, right? I will go back home at 12, log in at 2 a.m. And third, I told them that tomorrow, if I don't have a job, then you need to take care of my family. So my both leaders agreed and they allowed me to do that. The best part of the whole thing was that I made a vision that how we are going to approach it. I had around 10 of my direct. I went and talked to them. 7 agreed. 2 was maybe. 1 rejected it. Now my problem was not to get the guy who rejected it to get on my table. 9 had agreed. So I told the 10th guy, no problem. If you don't agree in this vision, then we are going to move with this. I have the go ahead from the senior management. So there's no problem. But I told him, before you reject it, let both of us work for 3 months. Because in 3 months, you will know whether I will be in this role or not. So, and then I went and talked to each of the sub teams, Asia, EMA, US. And I was working nearly 18 hours a day. And my wife kept on telling me, there is not a problem with the organization. I think the problem with you, wherever you go, you work like this. But I took it as a challenge, thinking that what will happen? At the end, the organization, because there was also the threat of the whole thing going back. If we don't answer it properly, the whole thing is. And in 18 months, we turned it around. We got one of the best Sirota survey, best voice of partner, excellent feedback from my functional manager and one of our manager Indian leadership team. We got the best team award. We got everything. But here is not question of Deepak Mohan. Here the question is that Deepak Mohan was able to sell his vision. Deepak Mohan, you won't believe, Ravi, for 1.5, 2 months, every day I would keep on telling the same thing, same thing, same thing. It became like this that in sleep also I was able to talk about it. And the two slides, I can talk anywhere, standing on the road, standing in the cinema hall, anywhere. And then the 10th guy, who is not there, he's still in that organization today. He's a very close friend. When I posted on LinkedIn that I have taken a voluntary break to revitalize and recharge myself, he was the guy who called me and we had a great discussion. We laughed about it. In the vision, the most important thing is you have to understand one thing, that if it's an organization of 5,000 people, what will happen? At most, one person will lose his job, and that is you, right? So that is the vision, that how you sell it.
Perfect, Deepak. Thanks so much. I think moving to the third theme on the crisis of participative leadership, Deepak. I think democratic, inclusive leadership is in decline, and yet it's more essential than ever. Top-down models may be faster, but not always wiser. So, sub-theme number one here is lessons from global leaders. So, the question is around what real-world costs have we seen when organizations or nations move away from participative leadership, Deepak?
See, I think one of the best example of participative leadership is arguably Nelson Mandela, one of the greatest leader of this century. Every country has its own icon, but why I take name of Nelson Mandela, I'll tell you the reason. Nelson Mandela came from a tribal background. So when his father was like a tribal leader, he used to go for meeting. A young Nelson Mandela will accompany his father. So Nelson Mandela observed two things in those meetings. One, everybody will sit in a circle, right? And second is, his father was the last man to talk. What his father will do is he will allow the others to speak. If they spoke something in the favor of the motion, he will not nod yes. If somebody spoke against the motion, he will not nod no. So people would not know what is in his mind. What advantage Nelson Mandela's father would have is, first is, he would become a great listener. He would take feedback of everybody. And second is, he has more data to talk about it. This is an excellent example of participative leadership, which Nelson Mandela took forward with him, as he, played a great role in removing apartheid from South Africa. Today's problem is, the moment a leader walks into the room, he starts rattling his own ideas. And then he asks the question, what is your thought? What is your thought? You tell me, Ravi, who will say no?
Yep.
Nobody will say no. Everybody has a family to feed. Everybody has to save a job. They will say yes. So this is something that if you ask my directs in any of the companies, I used to practice. I would tell them, I will go through idea. Yes, people will talk. They will. Sometimes the discussions temperature will go up. Sometimes people will defend. I will listen, and then we will take a decision. But I used to always tell people that once we go out of the room, this decision has been taken by all 10 of us. You cannot go and say, this decision was taken by Deepak Mohan and Mr. X. Late nodded the head. And I said, you better don't do that, because you will cause huge damage to your reputation. Nobody likes an idea or a leader who is timid and who can't stand for his own. So participative leadership builds a lot of things together. And this is one greatest example that I could think of for your question.
Great example, uh, Deepak. So, second one is on building systems for collective decision making. Deepak, the question is around how can businesses adopt collaborative decision making without sacrificing agility?
See, uh, this is something. I'll go to the first question and I'll pick something from there.
Sure.
See, in order to have participative, actually, there is a feeling in the industry that if you are a participative leader, then you cannot be agile. This is a misnomer. This is not the right thinking, I would say. Going and asking views of the people does not mean that you're going to agree with all the views of the people, right? But why you take this participative leadership? Because tomorrow, if you don't take this approach of participative leadership, three people may agree, one may disagree, and he would be the guy who burns your whole card down, right? So you might be thinking that you are one of the greatest inventors in the world, you have the most brilliant idea, but the guy whom you have not taken him along, he will be your greatest adversary. So this is very important, right? And if you have taken all of them along, then something that you have planned to implement in 3 months, all of them will get together to do it, right? So that is something that you have to understand. And there where agility comes. So remember one very classic example my dad used to say, engine is called an engine because it pulls the bogies. If there is no bogie attached to the engine has no role to play. Would you call it an engine which runs just as an engine without the 15, 16 bogies? That is the role the participative leadership plays. It takes along all the bogies with it, and therefore you reach on time at your destination. So agility is also moving embargoes and the bumpers on the road. Agility is not always flashing your hand and switching the screens. Agility is taking people along. And to whatever idea you see, Ravi, if your people disagree with that, one thing I will tell you, it is not going to happen. They will create one problem or the other and ensure that that idea fails. So participative leadership, many people do not understand, is a very, very good thing if you want to complete something on time and be ahead of time.
Absolutely, Deepak. Thank you. Coming to the last theme on humanity in accountability, Deepak, you can demand excellence without instilling fear, and great leaders are tough on standards but gentle on people. So sub themes are around leading with compassion in crisis. So one of the questions, Deepak, is how can leaders show empathy in moments of crisis without appearing to bend the rules?
Yeah. So, Ravi, I think one of the best example for this was the COVID, right? COVID really changed the way people used to think about and live about. I still remember one of my friend, our senior, very, very wealthy guy. He said, in my life, I will never need to work or wash my utensils. And he used to do wash the utensils with the AirPods in his ear, taking the meetings. And the mobile used to be on silent because there was a husband and wife, 2 children, all work was distributed among them. People had to do the huge wealth that he had. Nobody was ready to sacrifice their life and work in his house, right? So that happens. That people need to understand. very, very clearly that this is something that you need to have humanity. I will tell you a reverse example. We had a caretaker of my mother. My mother was a very old woman in her 80s, early 80s. We had a caretaker, right? And we used to treat her. She was 2 3 years elder to our son. I have just one son, and she was 2 3 years elder to our son. And we treated her as our daughter. When the COVID came, I was down with COVID. My mother was down with COVID. My wife was down with COVID. My son was down with COVID. She was not down with COVID, but she never left us. Because she was working for 6 years, in spite of our parents calling her insensately from Rajamoundry for her to come home. She refused to go home. So it's all question how you treat people. And when you and I are at our deathbed, nobody is going to remember the PowerPoints you made, right? You will only remember me how I treated you today. Or I will remember you how you treated you today. A very great saying of my father, and I'll say it in Hindi, and then I will, for your audience, I will translate into English. My father used to say, "Karma gala dabata hai, ya karma gala lagata hai." So karma, based on your karma, it will either strangulate you or hug you. That's going to happen one day. Nobody can escape this. So humanity is very important in office or at home. That not only gets you respect, but that even gets you followership. It gets you people who believe in you. And I don't think I could have given you a better example. 4 people who have COVID in the home, the maid doesn't have. She is serving all of us. In spite of us pushing her, telling her to go, she refused to leave and go. And after my mother passed away, she now, obviously, we didn't need her. She's now gone back to her home. They recently got married. We were part of those ceremony. So that's how life is about. So you like it or you don't like it. That's the truth of life. कर्मा गला लगाता है या कर्मा गला दबाता है.
Great example there. Coming to the last one, Deepak, on the culture of safety with high standards. What does it take to create a culture where accountability coexists with psychological safety, Deepak?
See, and I will tell you one example. In 18th century, there was something like which was called purpureal fever, which is black, which was called Black Death at childbirth. Happening in 18th century was the moment a woman will give birth to a child, within 48 hours that woman will die. This was across Europe and some parts of America. And sometimes the rate went to somewhere around 70%.
Right.
So this was a time of renaissance. So it was a time of logic, science. It was a time of empirical data. And also it was a time when people was looking back at tradition and mysticism. So during this period, what was happening that the doctors will do the autopsies of the dead bodies in the morning, and the same doctor which operate the women in the evening for childbirth. There was a doctor, Oliver Wendell Holmes, in the 18th century, who came up and said that this is happening because of the doctors not washing their hands after the autopsy and then going and doing the surgery. People laughed at him, but after 30 years, he was proven right. The reason for this death was a simple thing. Doctors not washing the hand properly, not sterilizing the surgical equipment, and just going for surgery. And once this was done, the whole thing vanished. So here, the lesson in the whole story is the problem is you. Leaders are sometimes the problem, but they don't want to accept it. It was not problem of the child. It's not problem of the woman who was on the bed. The problem with the doctors. The problem are the leaders. This brings us to the question of accountability, right? So, see, when you take accountability for your failures, that was segregates you from a leader of the masses to the leader of the classes, right? You have to understand one thing, that leadership has to be, in a sense, if you want to become a leader for tomorrow, then it is very, very important for you to understand this concept. I'm saying that when you do great work, you should be rewarded. You should absolutely be rewarded. But that will not go down so well when you take that accountability. In the closing of this question, I faced one situation in my career. One of my processors made a huge loss, and the person who made the loss was one of my top performers, and everybody was after a light to downgrade her rating, fire her, and all that. We stood with her. I just told one thing to my functional manager: if you drive car on the road, you will have scratches. So the only option that I have to not to run this business. Everything else will be fine. And he was absolutely fine with that answer. We were able to minimize the loss talking to Treasury because the money was within the bank. And later we had other options. So what I'm trying to tell you is this is extremely, extremely important. And I think his opinion about me changed when I was in Hong Kong meeting him. So he told me, Deepak, I got to know you not because of your success, but because of your failure. I raised my hand and I said, yes, we have made a mistake. We will not repeat it. So wise men learn the first time, fools don't learn it ever.
Perfect, Deepak. I think in summary, Deepak, I should say that I think there are 6 objectives for this podcast, and we actually met all of them. Starting with, I think, challenging outdated notions of high performance at any cost to championing a future-focused, empathetic leadership style. And you examined why authoritarian and transactional models are actually failing, inspiring change in terms of empowering people-centered, democratic, and values-based leadership. And finally, you shared a lot of real-time stories and showcased humane leadership through lived experiences, Deepak. So thanks a lot for coming as my guest for this particular podcast. And sometime in the future, I'll pull you back with another topic, Deepak. Thanks a lot for your time.
Thank you, Ravi. Thank you for your time. And it was a great pleasure talking to you. All the very best. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.